Almost. Major. Holy fucking shit, this is major! Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Almost Major, where we talk about the many major studios and the films they release. My name is Kevin Tudor. I'm here with Bryden Doyle.
Hello.
And Charlie Nash.
Hello.
We are still on our 1980s New Line miniseries, and we are talking about the Rosary Murders from 1987. This released wide, allegedly, on August 28th, 1987, but I looked it up and it opened in Detroit on August 27th, and then New York and LA on the 28th, so this was a platformed limited release because it opened in 112 theaters. The budget, according to an article at the time in the Detroit Free Press, budget of $5.4 to $6 million. Opening weekend made $323,093. Overall domestic gross, $1.7 million. Top 5 films that weekend. I looked up most of these trailers because I had either never heard of them or had never seen a trailer and couldn't put two together. Number 1 was Stakeout, which that's Emilio Estevez and who else?
Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
What is
they're
it,
like
a
staking
vampire
out a
movie?
woman, and they're just like, yo, wouldn't it be awesome if we saw this woman naked, and then they get into some shenanigans, and they were just like, what if there was another stakeout, and they were just like, get to the studio, we're doing it again. No Way Out, which I believe that's the Costner.
That movie's awesome.
Yeah, that movie's fun. I like that movie.
Dirty Dancing, of course. The Fourth Protocol. I watched the trailer for this, and I've already forgotten what it was.
That does sound vaguely familiar. I would have to look it up, though. Yeah.
Look it up real quick. And then number 5 is Hamburger Hill, which I know of the name. I knew that it was a movie until I watched the trailer, and I was like, oh, okay. There's
I've
some
heard
people
of
in
Hamburger
it.
Hill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's John Irvin, who I like a couple of his movies. He did that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, Raw Deal, and the Harvey Keitel crime movie, City of Industry, which is really good. The Fourth Protocol, it's a Michael Caine movie by John Mackenzie, who is a Scottish director. It's with him and Pierce Brosnan. I think
That's right. Brosnan was
you
in
know
it.
what? I think I remember this because Suspense is Killing Us did an episode on this of the episode was called My Cocaine, and it was all Michael Caine movies.
Nice.
Number 4 at the box office. Number 1 song in the U.S. this week is La Bamba by Los Lobos. I believe that's because La Bamba movie was out around that time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then number 1 song in Canada this week is Who's That Girl by Madonna.
Well, that was also a movie that came out probably around that time, right? Yeah.
Wow. Better times, but
By
also really
James
weird
Foley,
times.
director of Confidence, everyone's favorite.
Wasn't that our best episode ever?
That was an amazing episode. Just like
Charlie,
God.
tell me one thing about the movie Confidence from 2003.
it ended with fucking Clocks by Coldplay. That happened.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. They called dollar bills green Twinkies. Plot description from Google. Detroit is plagued by a series of murders of priests and nuns, with each victim found holding a black rosary. The police seem powerless to stop the serial killer, and the church can't protect its deities. But when the progressive and charismatic Father Robert Kostler, played by Donald Sutherland, hears a confession from the murderer.
Are we sure about that?
This is from Google. This is not from me. Here's a confession from the murderer. He isn't sure what to do. Yeah, we'll get into that. Can he respect the seal of confession even if it means putting more lives, perhaps even his own, in jeopardy? He can't, actually. That's where the movie should end, where it's just like he's in the confession booth with the murderer. He should have just been like, hold on 1 second, and then just goes in the other confession booth, just beats the shit out of him.
Hello, real cops?
Like, oh my god. And then he's talking to the other priest, and he's just like, so, say that somebody, poisoned. They told me in the confession booth that they were poisoning a bunch of, what is it, like, water? Or
Holy
like
wine. Yeah.
Holy
holy
wine,
wine?
yeah.
He was like, what would you do? And he was just like, I don't know, man. Can't do shit.
He says, find a way to accidentally spill the wine, and then
Yeah.
as he's walking off, it's off screen, you hear Sutherland go, it's not wine.
It reminds me, Charlie, did we watch that episode of Beavis and Butthead where they get Spanish fly and put it in the punch, and then they just get violently ill?
Yep. Incredible.
Written by Elmore Leonard and Fred Walton, based on a novel by William X. Kinsel. One of the few movies that actually written by Elmore Leonard and not based on a novel by him. And another interesting tidbit about Kinsel, he was a Catholic priest for 20 years who who ended up writing mystery novels. So, kids.
I will say, when Elmore Leonard's name came up in the credits, I was like, oh, maybe this will be good. And, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but
there's no crackling dialogue like you expect.
None.
I say that having read like part of like one of Elmore Leonard's books, but also like seeing a lot of adaptations of his work and everything. It's like, yeah, you think like it's like really like sharp banter and everything, and here like it's like the closest you get is like, I mean, we'll get to it, but like there's like one line where it's like, I guess that's like kind of a joke and everything, but even then the movie's saying, that's pretty good, and then it never does anything like that ever again. It's like,
right. Directed by Fred Walton. Prior to this, When a Stranger Calls in 1979. April Fool's Day in 1986, and an episode of Miami Vice the same year. After this, I Saw What You Did in 1988, When a Stranger Calls Back in 1993, TV movie called Dead Air starring Gregory Himes that I want to watch from 1994, and of course the TV movie The Stepford Husbands in 1996.
There's a Stepford Husbands?
What if it was guys? It's I read the plot description, it's literally just, what if it was guys? Starring Donald Sutherland as Father Robert Costler. Prior to this, MASH in 1970, Clute in 1971, Don't Look Now in 1973, Invasion of the Body Snatchers 78, Ordinary People 1980. After this, A Dry White Season in 89, JFK in 91, The Puppet Masters in 1994, Virus in 1999, and the Hunger Games films. I need to watch The Puppet Masters. It sounds pretty nuts. Charles Durning as Father Ted in Neighbors. Prior to this, Dog Day Afternoon in 75, The Fury in 1978, When a Stranger Calls in 1979, nominated for an Oscar for the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas in 1982, and To Be or Not to Be in 1983. After this, Dick Tracy in 1990, When a Stranger Calls Back in 1993, The Hudsucker Proxy in 94, and Oh Brother Where Art Thou in 2000.
He also played a priest on Everybody Loves Raymond, and I like to imagine, like, what if his priest character on that is the same character from Rosary Murders?
He's just really put out, and it's just like, I don't know, man, I'm here, isn't that enough? And then Belinda Bauer as Pat Lennon. Prior to this, Flashdance in 1983, TV movie called Star-Crossed in 1985. After this, played a mud wrestler in UHF in 1989.
Yeah, I saw that, because when I checked her on Letterboxd, I was like, she was in UHF and mud wrestler. I do remember that sketch, but yeah.
RoboCop 2 in 1990, Necronomicon in 1993, and Poison Ivy 2 in 1996. Trivia. At the time, the biggest feature film ever shot entirely in Detroit. And I made this before I watched the movie. I looked, couldn't find him. Jack White from the White Stripes appears as an altar boy marking his film debut. Didn't see him.
Is he the kid who passes out and drops the altar of the cross on Charles Durning?
19 people bring out guns.
Yeah. I mean, relatable that he falls asleep in the service in the middle of this boring ass movie, but
Yeah.
Oh man, that was so funny. It's just like he got knocked over, and just like a fucking priest is like struggling to get his gun, and then like 19 other people pull out guns. They're just like, oh, this kid's just bored. Sorry. It's just like the murderer was about to kiss the feet of, which that's a whole thing. When producer Robert G. Laurel bought the rights to the Rosary Murders, Kienzle, the novelist's first novel, he also bought the rights to the author's second novel, 1980's Death Wears a Red Hat, which also follows the character of Father Costler. It was not made into a movie, but I wish it was.
It sounds like it's a Christmas, kind of, like,
it sounds like it would be a sequel to, like, Clue. Death Wears a Red Hat. Man with one red shoe, Death Wears a Red Hat. That's right. And although Laurel and Kienzle had known each other for many years, Kienzle officiated Laurel's wedding and baptized his children. Kienzle filed a lawsuit during the film's production, demanding to see the script and insisting that the main character, Father Bob Costler, remain chaste. Is that how you say it? I mean, it's chastity, but just chaste. Okay, I'm leaving that in because I'm stupid. Throughout the film. Although Kienzle lost the lawsuit, Laurel assured that there would be a virtue clause for the priest character. I love that he was like, you're gonna make this movie, don't make the priest fuck. Don't do it. I'll take you to fucking court.
I mean, that explains, like, that weird sort of morning after scene in the diner thing where it's like, hey, why don't we go out? And it's like, sounds great. Cut to next day.
I know. So weird. Yeah. Well, her character, not to get into it, but she just comes in and out of the movie out of nowhere.
She's gone for like an hour.
Oh, yeah.
And then she was just like, you want me to show up at the ending? They're like, I guess.
There is one crime so unspeakable, it's not even mentioned in the Ten Commandments.
Are you aware of the rumors surrounding Father Lord's death?
I'm the one.
Excuse me?
I'm the one.
Though sworn to silence, Father Kessler must try to unravel a mystery.
Sister Anne wasn't raped. Nothing was stolen. No sign of a break-in anywhere.
And the closer he gets, the more terrifying the nightmare becomes.
Why are you doing this?
Because of you. Break the seal of confession, and you destroy the church.
People are gonna die.
We're saving souls, Bob, not lives.
If you want to sit there and watch while your friends are dying, that's up to you. But now my men are getting killed. And they may not all understand about your little professional secrets.
You want me to read church law to you? I know what church law says, and it doesn't apply.
Donald Sutherland, Charles Durning, Belinda Bauer in the Rosary Murders. He swore silence. Now 7 people are dead.
Yeah, initial thoughts. Who wants to go first? I mean, I don't have much to say, so I can go ahead and say that, but I can say about a few notes that I wrote down. But yeah, this movie's pretty boring, but it's also a very interesting topic in its story, but it's just done in the most boring-ass way. And me and Bryden were talking before, because you were watching He Knows What You Did, and just how languished and long every scene is. And Fred Walden does do that in his movies, because like when A Stranger Calls, obviously the first like 20-25 minutes are just fucking phenomenal, and all of it is very slow, paced out, and it's like, oh, so you guys like slow scenes and whatnot? It's like, no, you hit lightning in a bottle, man. You can't do that for every fucking thing.
Yeah.
So there's that, and yeah, it's just, let's see, how, I'm surprised this isn't like over 2 hours. It's 1:45, but it's an interesting idea that's done, like I said, in the most boring way, and then when it resolves, it's just like, oh, well, that's not really that interesting. Like, I wish it was some guy who had like a fucking John Doe-esque plan, and he was just like, no, I was just fucking my daughter and decided to kill some nuns, and you're just like, okay, well, I'm already kind of bored, so once you got to the revelation, I just quit caring. So the shot of Sister Anne in the bloody bathtub with the rosary beads on her hand, that's a dope-ass shot.
Yeah, no, I mean, the first 10 minutes, I was thinking we were into something kind of interesting.
There is a top-tier, you better take a look at this from a officer, so I was pretty happy about that. The father goes to the bar and orders a Virgin Mary, and I slap my knee like 10 times because that's just comedy.
Wait, is it a Virgin Mary or a Bloody Mary?
It's Virgin Mary. Yeah, just
Okay.
the summer is drinking it. It's like, I'll have the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the first lines in the movie is Charles Durning replying to a woman. There's a dead man at a funeral, and she's like, doesn't he look peaceful? He's like, no, he doesn't look peaceful. He looks dead.
Then he like steals his glasses.
And then I think we'll do, oh, fuck it, I'll just say the line now. But it's, I think it's Durning and Sutherland are talking about a woman who's trying to have a baby baptized out of wedlock. And then Sutherland, who's just like on his like 9th nap of the day, was just like, why can't we be more concerned with peace of mind instead of a piece of ass?
And then Dirty's like, that's pretty good.
You're just like, you've been taking notes from me. I like that.
Like a butthead from Beavis and Butthead laugh of a, yeah.
But yeah, that's more than plenty that I've got for that. So, Charlie?
Yeah, I'm in the exact same boat. I mean, Jesus, this is like,
Hey. Yeah, no, I'm
yeah,
kidding.
yeah. I realized what no, but I'm, God, this is such a lazy metaphor, but it's like you're like, it's like you're driving in a 40-mile-per-hour zone and like the person in front of you is going like 25. That's what this movie felt like to me, where I was just kind of like, it's just going to keep getting interesting. It's going to get interesting, right? And it's just like, no, not really. It's just like, okay, who's behind these murders? It was like, what if we told you it was about incest? Okay. And it's just like, well, who could it be? Who could it possibly be? Oh, we're just going to reveal that to you. It's just this guy.
Oh. Some guy.
All right. Well, what about the you know, the existential, like, you know, the existential, like, angst and morality that they're going to wrestle with? Well, we're basically just going to say it out loud and not really go any further than that. And it's just like, I just kept wishing, I mean, obviously this movie came before some of these movies, but like something like Bad Lieutenant was something I kept thinking of, especially with because that is a film that deals with nuns being assaulted and murdered, and or I don't remember if they get murdered, but they definitely get assaulted, and like the subversiveness of dealing with a character who's trying to figure out what's going on, why it's happening, and then their sense of forgiveness and all this, the bold choices and left turns that movie took in examining faith and even the most shocking forms of like optimism and the most horrible filth that you could possibly expose. This movie is just straight down the middle, like just a bad Law and Order SVU episode, basically. It is. It's just boring. Characters come and go out of nowhere. There's subplots that exist just to be like, oh, it seems like there's some hypocrisy going on in the Catholic Church, eh? And it's just like, yeah, we know that. Like, there's no depth to any of these characters. I mean, I love Donald Sutherland. He's a great actor, but yeah, he's like, I don't know. Like, did he take NyQuil before, like getting in front, like, or I mean, he's probably being told that he's directed that way, but yeah, I mean, there's just not even there's a couple good, interesting kill scenes, but they also just kind of like, it's not the type of thing, like the movie's just so drowsy that whenever a kill scene comes up, you're kind of like, oh, good, the movie's like starting now, and then it just doesn't really go anywhere after that. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of a nothing burger. It's just very predictable, and also like, yeah, I agree with you what you said, Kevin. There's a lot of meat on its bones in terms of like you explaining what the movie's about, but it's very surface level in terms of both how it's examining it, and also just aesthetically. There's just like, it's not like terrible, but it's also, there's just no blood in its veins. There's no pulse to this movie. There's no sense of dread or atmosphere, really. It's just sort of might as well just do a point and shoot scene. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to say. I watched this movie a couple days ago, and it's like already like fading from my memory. So I'm sorry that I also don't have a ton to add to this conversation, just other than, yeah, I guess that happened. I'm also, and for the record, like, I also do wrestle sometimes with movies about faith or religion, because I was very much raised by agnostic parents. I've never been to church a day in my life, but I do think that there are ways in which films can examine faith, and it's there's so many films I can think of, like, yeah, I mean, I mentioned Bad Lieutenant, First Reformed, Paul Verhoeven examines Catholicism in interesting ways, even in stuff like, I know it's a much different movie, but like Benedetta. What were the other, because I think I texted you like a whole list of movies I wished that I was watching as opposed to this, that examines
Calvary was the one that you named.
Calvary is another movie I kept thinking of. I mean, that's a movie that starts off with Brendan Gleeson being told that he's going to die in a confessional booth, and then it becomes like a film noir, basically, about him trying to figure out who wants to murder him, and also dealing with all of the repercussions of how the church has like kind of turned their backs or like let the people down in this small town. Like, I think there are so many great, this is very there's a plethora of of directions you could go down in terms of this material, and it's just a snoozer. It's not fun to just be like, yeah, this movie just kind of exists, but that's basically how I felt. So I don't know.
Fred Walton is kind of a sleepy director. Like, as much as I do love the first 20-25 minutes of When a Stranger Calls, the next hour is like the most like boring Law and Order episode. Like, yeah, boring.
Oh yeah, I saw When a Stranger Calls at a midnight screening at the Coolidge Corner Theater, and like, yeah, like you, Kevin, first 20 minutes, I'm in. Last hour, well, my popcorn's gone, and now I'm kind of sleepy. Like,
it's just like, you know how great Carol Kane was in that open scene? What if we just follow the child murderer for like a month, or after he gets out, and just like, he tries to hit on a woman at the bar. Doesn't really go well, and I'm just like, why do we care?
Why do we care? I mean, the killer, there's no, like, they don't have any interest in the psychology of these characters. The killer in this thing is basically that we're just gonna reveal it's this guy. Why? I don't know. He's fucked up, I guess. Like, it's just,
well, just like the mystery of it is not very mysterious or very enthralling. It's just like, who's the guy doing this? Well, it's some guy. What's his plan? doesn't really have one. So it's like all the scenes where he'd be like sleuthing and whatnot, it's just Donald Sutherland looking at obituaries for like 5 minutes straight.
And then he's like, well, it says that this guy lost someone 2 years ago, just like that guy in the confessional booth. But just to be sure, I'm going to go to the graveyard for like, I don't know, a couple minutes. Then I'm going to get scared by something, and it turns out to be nothing. And then the scene's over.
The obituaries constantly lie, so I got to see it with my own 2 eyes, and then I'll get back to it in like 20 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, also just like typical, like even the kill scenes are pretty predictable. Like the scene where the priest is just like the score's ramping up a little bit, and then he goes into the confessional booth and you see the little red light, and then you hear a and like
that's most of them.
Yeah.
I did think that even though it is kind of, which I'm very surprised this is rated R. Because other than like the bathtub blood, which like you can get away with that in PG-13, but like most of the murders is just like when the sister is like announcing after she puts a woman to bed and whatnot, and she turns on the TV and whatnot and does like the nightly announcements. You can see like a shadowy figure behind her, and then it goes to the hall and she's like, and tonight we'll have
I think it's the whole when you find out that there's an incestuous thing going on.
It's
I think
pretty
that's
scuzzy.
It's but it's like it's afraid to get too dirty, and also by making it like just kind of surface level dirty, that actually makes it worse. If that makes any sense.
Because
like,
the movie ends on the image of the girl who took her own life because she couldn't handle like the horrible abuse that she was enduring and everything. I'm like, she's not a character in this movie though. The movie's barely about her, so it's bullshit to end on her face and everything. Look, nice try, I guess, but like the movie is not really about her. It's not really about anything. Like,
well, it's not doing like Laura Palmer and Twin Peaks stuff, which look, I get it. That's aiming for something entirely different. David Lynch is doing his own thing, and that's a completely surrealistic take on certain things. But like it's not, the movie's not smart enough to be aware of the ghostly, specter of her character haunting the entire movie, because they didn't bother fleshing her out as a human being. She's just a plot device.
Doesn't it end on a freeze frame of Blenda Bauer's character? I was like,
yes, you're right.
I was just like, it's not gonna end, right? She's like been gone for the last hour, and she's like not really important to the story, unfortunately, because they could just kind of drop her.
Yes,
and
thank you for reminding me of that. I forgot that it ended on her face, because her character made such a strong impression on me. Not through the Bauer's fault. It's just the movie, like you said, the movie just forgets about her for a while, and
there is a unintentionally funny scene where like I think she drives him back to his place, which his place is the church. But she was like, how do you tell a priest you have feelings for him or you care for him? He just stands there for like 20 seconds. And she's like, all right, well, see you later.
That's the movie in a nutshell. Yeah.
You want to go through the plot?
Well, I had some thoughts on the movie too.
Really,
Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, look, I'm basically echoing, like, I found this movie to be, to take another phrase from, I think it was past guest Emily Soderbeck used on her podcast, Suspense is Killing Us. This movie is a Snoroboro.
Snoroboro.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, the thing that makes it's not exciting enough as a thriller to work on that level, because it's just like a lot of scenes of like, Donald Sutherland like sifting through old papers, moping in the church, walking down the hallway to investigate a mysterious noise, and like it goes about it's like the movie's like just shot in like this the drowsiest ways possible and everything, and like it's the movie trying to build like tension slowly, but it just fucks up the timing so badly, where like there's the scene where Donald Sutherland breaks into the dead girl's house that's like being occupied by the killer and everything, and he opens the door and he's startled by someone who's standing out there, and then he like closes the door, which like I don't know why he does that. It's like, you spotted, dude. You can't be. You're not hiding successfully. Then he goes out and walks very slowly down the hall and everything downstairs, and he just leaves the house, which is like, okay, whatever. And then like the music starts to ramp up very slowly, and the camera slowly starts tracking right along the curtains to get to the window, so we can see him get in his car. And I'm like, that's the ending of this. I'm like, it's like, because like, there's gonna be suspenseful reveal, and no, he just leaves the scene. Like, that's like the energy of the whole movie, and it's just like, you're not building to anything.
It does kind of feel like they filmed a bunch of like build up scenes and they were like, we'll get to the payoff tomorrow, and then they just forgot to film it. Like, like what if he just left, or like how will he come in touch with the killer? What if the killer is just there? like it's just...
all these questions. Okay, but what if he got into his car? Like, wouldn't that be suspenseful? Where's he going? You don't know.
The movie, so like, I don't think the movie works very well as a thriller, but then also it will have like these schlocky tendencies where it's like, you know, the scene of like, you know, a cop like comes in to like guard someone, he's just like, ma'am, are you okay? The camera slowly approaches the back of her rocking chair, and they reveal there's a knife in there, and then the killer pops over from behind the door and shoots her. It's like, that's like a typical scene in like a slasher movie or anything.
Yeah.
But then like it's also dealing with like, that sort of stuff clashes with the movie trying to be about like, man, what are we doing as a church? So, you know, how can I hold up my morals and everything when I feel like I have like this other set of morals that I'm feeling, you know, I want to try to do right, but like this place I work for tells me that that's not what we're supposed to do. Is this place that I'm working for, does it not really have any meaning, especially when there's corruption within there? But it's like, it just doesn't really hold weight. It just kind of hits that same note of like him just being like, man, my hands are tied and everything. Like, what can I do?
Yeah. They also kind of, it's like this sort of stuff. I get that it's never happened to these characters personally before, but like it's as if they're kind of talking about it as if it's never happened before ever. Like,
well, it's interesting you say like I wonder if this movie was not a hit and everything, but like you talk about like, yeah, we know like the Catholic Church is like, you know, been hypocritical and everything. I don't know, like, I mean, some of the big scandals that have hit it involving abuse, that's like a thing that's come out, I guess, like maybe in the last 20 years, so maybe after this movie came out, so maybe this like seemed like a little more shocking at the time, but like it just, again, like the movie just like deals with it like the most like in the dreariest way possible, and like, again, I don't think so. By the end of the movie, you know, Sutherland, not only do I think it's like a very one-note performance, and he's also like in a movie that's at that same low energy level. You get to the end of the movie and it's revealed like Durning, who is like the far livelier performer, he's like the one who like, it turns out like he's like the one who knew about like all this horrible abuse going on and everything. And it's like, I mean, he wouldn't be like a sympathetic character, but it's like, I feel like him, like there'd be like way more internal conflict about like him slowly figuring out why all this is happening and reckoning with his own part in it, because then you're just like, well, Sutherland didn't really have anything to do with this, so like,
yeah,
why is he the main character of this movie? I mean, again, also, yeah,
and Durning's just a fucking asshole. Like, he just doesn't care.
Sure.
You know?
I mean, yeah, and he's an asshole, but like, there's at least some fucking like life to the performance and everything, because I think he's just like a naturally charismatic actor. But like, it's, I mean, you're right in that the movie has its priorities mixed up. I'm sorry, I interrupted. No. It's all good.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, I mean, I have like, I have issues with Calvary. Like, I circle with the tone in that movie sometimes, like the tonal switches. That movie does like a much better job of like, you know, the sense of place and the sense of history between all of its characters that occupy the little island that they live on. And that, you know, Gleason, like, you know, you're very sympathetic to his character, but then also his conflicts in his flaws are relatable, and also like genuine flaws too. Yeah, and then like, you know, I Confess was like an Alfred Hitchcock movie with like Montgomery Clift, where it's this basically the same premise where a guy says like, I killed this guy and anything. What are you gonna do about it? You can't do shit because you know, seal confession or anything. And I'll be honest, my memory of that movie is kind of foggy and anything, but I remember at least that one being like pretty stylish and like briskly paced, and Montgomery Clift is like really solid as an actor and anything in that. But like, yeah, so like this material can be, like you said, be explored in an interesting way and high-minded and like sort of like more sensational ways, but this movie just like kind of drops the ball on both fronts, because you know, it sucks when we do these movies that like have no reputation really, and then like you get to them and then you want to like kind of stick up for them, but I just don't think there's really a lot here.
It's kind of exactly what you think it is. Like, which is the yeah.
I also want to clarify too, Kevin, because you talked about me watching. I saw what you did. I should be honest that I bailed 30 minutes in on that movie. I did not finish it, so I can't speak to that movie's quality really. But yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
Well, and I'll also say before we get into the plot, it never feels like Donald Sutherland is really struggling that much. It's more so just like, it reminds me of like a kind of like a kid that has questions and then their parents answer and they're like, oh, okay. But instead of being like, why can't I do that? He's just like, That is right. That is what I signed up for. God, it sucks that I can't do that. But I got to. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's just this movie going about it in like the most uncinematic way possible, where he's like is saying, "Now, what's the name of this sister that talked to this girl?" It's like, "Oh, her name," and like it's like I don't remember what her name is. It's like Catherine Keller, and he's like, "All right," and then it's like, "How do you spell that?" And it's like Keller, Kellerer, and then you see him like writing the name down. I'm just like, do we fucking need this? Like,
No.
like
Also, an entire scene of him passing notes back and forth between someone that goes on for what, like 2 minutes?
Oh,
where
yeah.
It's so suspenseful. What is she going to say next? And it's usually just like, you know what happened. He's like, no, I don't. And then she says it, and he's just like, what?
Well, like he says, like he's like asking her like yes or no questions and everything, or yes or no questions, but yes or no answers and everything, and she like writes the answer yes on like a separate piece of paper like more than once. I'm like, can't you just reuse the first piece of paper that had yes on it? But like, whatever.
Think about the fucking trees, you asshole.
And then Paul Dano comes out from the confession booth. He's like, I fucking said, from Little Miss Sunshine.
Oh, for a second I thought you were going to be like making a reference to his There'll Be Blood character. I'm like, this movie could have used some of that. Like if there was just
that would kick ass.
If there was just one like person who was just like, what the fuck is this guy doing?
And then you make him the murderer. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's not what they did.
No, that's not what they did at all.
Let's get into the plot and try to make sense of this, shall we? In a Roman Catholic parish in Detroit, a series of murders begin in rapid succession. Almost as successionist as me trying to say that. First, Father James Lord, that's his real last name? He's got to be a father, is killed on Ash Wednesday by an unknown assailant who unplugs the respiratory in his hospital room. Shortly after, Sister Anne informs her superior, Father Robert Costler, played by Sutherland, that she intends to leave the convent as she has fallen in love with a man and wishes to marry him. The next morning, she is found by Costler stabbed to death in her bathtub. A third victim, Father Daly, is shot to death inside of a confession booth in the chapel, which each killing, the assailant leaves behind a black rosary in the victim's hand, which is a cool calling card, and they do nothing with it.
It doesn't mean anything.
No, it's just cool.
With the sister who leaves, Sister Anne, there's like a weird detail where like he's like seems to be like looking out the window at her like window when she's like getting ready for bed or whatever, like from like in the school cross, and I'm thinking, is he like a peeping Tom and everything? But he just like he doesn't really see anything. I don't know if it's like and then like he just like walks away, and then like again it's like this movie just like ineptly like showing this it's inept idea of suspense and everything. You see like I think you see her shadow like pass the window, and then you get the long shot where it's like and then another shadow quickly passes, and then the scene that fades to black, and then it's just like you're really not this is a sign that like things are not gonna be so good pacing wise.
Isn't her first line just like, I'm leaving the church, I'm in love with a man? I was like, oh honey, all right. Like
oh no, please don't go. Yeah.
Willy Wonka, don't stop, come back.
It's just like, damn, lost another one. It's just like Saving Silverman whenever she leaves. She's like, damn, lost another one. Pat Linden, played by Belinda Bauer, is a journalist for the local newspaper. What newspaper? The local newspaper. Is appointed to cover the murders and strikes up a friendship with Costler, who himself has experience working in the city's Catholic press. Later, Costler angers his superior, Father Neighbors, played by Charles Durning, after performing a baptism on an infant born out of wedlock, which is very funny. The scene before, he's like, don't fucking do it. Don't do it. The next scene, he's fucking doing it. Yeah. Costler is unnerved when a man who claims to be the killer visits his confessional and blames the church for his teenager's death 3 years prior. Costler is shaken by the encounter and conflicted about reporting it to the authorities, as a priest is morally forbidden from breaking the seal of confession. Later, Father Killian is struck by the killer with a car while running in an unpopulated industrial area in the city. The killer emerges from the car and shoots him before placing a rosary in his hand.
That's also a super weird scene because he like hits him and he's just like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even see you!" And then like he runs and holds the guy's hand and then shoots him. It's like you don't need to play it up at this point. Like the charade is up.
Also, like you can. It's the type of movie where I mean, if it doesn't matter if you know who the killer is, but it is just like okay, I guess this is who the killer is, and it's just the most undramatic, like, way of, like, wow, I guess we can see him from a full medium shot, huh? I guess, like...
At like 2 p.m., isn't that creepy?
It's like it's such a point and shoot bullshit, like, type of thing, like, not exciting at all. And, like, okay, if you don't care, if this isn't important about who the killer's identity is, that's fine, but it's just kind of like, oh, it's just that guy, huh? Oh, okay. Like,
does he have any kind of deformity? Is he tall, stocky? Is he scary to look at? He's like, no, once again, some guy.
Yeah.
Kostler begins investigating, searching for records of the 16-year-old girl's death. He eventually finds records of a Catherine Jeviston, whom he learns attended a Catholic school. Speaking with staff, he learns that Catherine fell into an inexplicable deep depression in the last year of her life before killing herself. Kostler attempts to speak with Sister Margaret Mary, Catherine's school advisor, but is informed that she took a vow of silence after Catherine's death. Next, Kostler visits the Javistons' home, but receives no response upon knocking on the door. He climbs through the window into her bedroom.
And then he pushes the ladder down. I'm like, that doesn't seem like a very smart idea.
He does.
I was just like, the front door was locked. Yeah, okay. He was just like, you know what's going to happen? Somebody's going to be in there, and they're going to be like, not say anything, and they'll just be like, you're like, all right, I'm leaving now.
That would be funny if he just, like, I don't know, found a trampoline or something that he then threw out the window after that. like this'll help.
Oh no, he's like halfway into the window, kicks the ladder back, it lands on a trampoline, comes back, hits him in the ass, and he falls into the bedroom. Dad opens the door, what's going on here? Oh, God. He climbs through the window, which through Catherine's bedroom, which has remained unchanged since her death. Kostler notices a black rosary in her room, as well as a ceiling lamp and rope that Catherine used to hang herself. Catherine's father catches Kostler in the house, but allows him to depart unharmed.
Okay, also, the rope that she uses to hang herself. Look, I know that, like, you wouldn't touch the room. You'd at least, like, take the fucking rope down. Like, Jesus.
I mean, yeah, that. I mean, but also, reading this, it makes it seem like he's just like, what are you doing here? All right, well, you can go. He just opens the door, and he's there, and he's like, fuck, goddamn. I think I'm going to leave. It wasn't just like, you are now allowed to depart unharmed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Father Steele is called to give communion to a shut-in and is escorted by police, only to be murdered inside the house. Later, Kostler unwittingly gives confession to Pat, who confesses her romantic feelings for him. When he attempts to phone her, he learns she has left Detroit. It's just a banger of a storyline she got. Kostler manages to arrange a meeting with Sister Mary Margaret, and she initially communicates with a notepad before relenting and speaking aloud. She informs Kostler that Catherine confided in her that she and her father had an incestuous relationship. Mary Margaret refuses to believe the accusation, but found profound guilt after Catherine killed herself. Moments after Kostler leaves, Sister Mary Margaret is shot to death in the kitchen by the Apparent Repairman. This guy, he's got...
Repairman.
Oh, yes, go in there and repair stuff. Mr. Repairman? What do you have there? Yeah.
It sounds like the worst title for a novel ever, The Apparent Repairman.
Yeah, and, like, Kessler is there, too, I think, because I think there's, like,
yes.
This is when the shootout happens where, like, 2 cops get shot, but then, like, the guy who's, like, posing as a repairman, like, the shooter who's posing as a repairman, he, like, gets wounded and, like, still somehow manages to, like, limp away. This is also, like, one of my like just one of the most inexplicable scenes in the movie when the cop who's played by Joseph Summer, who was also the dirty police chief in Witness, he, like, says, like, he sits, like, Sutherland down and says, like, obviously now we're going after someone with specific premeditated targets. I'm like, you're figuring this out now? Like,
yeah.
It's like,
I thought you were just killing a bunch of people. Did you know that they were all nuns and priests? Did you know that?
And this guy left groceries there too. Like, it seems like a
we just learned that the repairman they let in, he didn't repair shit.
Let's trace we can trace a line of chalk where the body was. That way we know where it is.
Kostler and 2 policemen hear the gunfire and rush to her aid, but the killer shoots both officers to death and escapes. This is not listed here, but they're just like, hey man, you were the last one to see her alive. What'd you do? And he's just like, it wasn't me. And they were just like, I don't know why, but he's telling the truth, man. At the police station, Costler studies a evidence board displaying the serial killer's victims. This shot is 30 minutes long. Like, why is it so long?
Yeah.
I guess it's again like saying like what are trying to like add some sort of depth of like, man, what is it all about? Like, all these people and everything. It's like they're not real characters in this movie. They, like, you don't know anything about them except they got killed. Like, it's yeah.
He realizes that each victim names has a connection to the one of the 10 Commandments, which he learns in the most silly shoe-ass way possible.
Yeah, he's like the kids' pictures that he got at the start of the movie from Sister Anne. He's like reading through them. He says like, remember the seventh day, and he's like, for what? The collection. And then like he like puts the paper down, and then he reads it. And
he's like, thou shalt not steal. Steal, huh?
Yeah, and then like he's like, wait a minute, Magdalena, Mary Magdalene, love thy neighbor. Father neighbors. It's just like, oh, come on.
Yeah. It's like, thou shalt not steal because there's a father steal. And I was just like, how did this happen, though? He was like, I'm going to kill people to the 10 Commandments. I hope this church in Detroit can be those connections. Like, it makes no fucking sense. This church is Looney Tunes.
This is also some more, like, just great pun comedy. The peace of mind, piece of ass thing. You get a character saying, don't see what's so good about Good Friday. And it is just like...
he died on that day, guys. I don't know what's so good about it. But Father Neighbors manages to perform a Good Friday service without incident. After the service, Costler witnesses Robert Javison arrive at the church to make a confession. Javison confessions to Neighbors that he had forced his daughter into incest with him before drawing a gun to kill Neighbors. However, the murder attempt is botched when police, observing from outside, shoot this man to death through a window. Afterwards, Costler is giving a letter found in Javison's pocket. It is Catherine's suicide note in which she states her goodbyes and that she forgives her father.
And then you get the freeze frame on Belinda Bauer, and then the movie ends.
She literally comes in and just looks at him. It's just like, credits.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, guys. I just dozed off. Is the movie over?
The reason why Durning is like, being targeted to is because he was the guy told him that what he was doing to his kid, and like this is probably honestly this is probably how like many priests have probably dealt with this thing, not in a bad way of like saying like just like to cut it. I think the word they use is like is to cut it out and anything, and like that is like sort of ignorance. It does seem like that seems like stuff that has happened in real life and everything. But again, like the movie's like not really dealing with it in like a very deep way. Just like sort of, it's very surface level. I also laughed kind of at this line after like the horrible death that's happened. Well, not the horrible death, the big shootout that happens at the end. Just as Summer goes up to Donald Sutherland and says, "You okay, Father?" And then Donald Sutherland's like, "Yeah," and I'm like, I don't think you would be okay after everything that you've been through in this movie.
He makes it seem like he's like, thank God this is over. I gotta go back to being boring. Because he just really, through the entire movie, is really put out by the fact that he's like, another one of these nuns are gonna die, aren't they? Do they, I mean, in this description, it doesn't really say, but why is he targeting the church?
Because I think he's mad. Well, he's mad at Durning for like, it's like a sort of self-loathing thing where he wants to be punished by the church, and he feels like the church is not really like, following its morality and everything. Like, I guess he thinks like if the church were really moral and everything, they would be like doing more to like sort of intervene to stop him from being abusive to his family. And then like that just sort of makes him snap and like lash out at the whole institution.
But that's also on the movie because it really does make you connect the dots. It doesn't even try and get into the psychological insight of why this killer might be drawn to this type of stuff, and the fact that, hey, I'm sure he's probably... I'm assuming, I mean, but it even gives the movie too much credit to be like, I'm sure he's going through a lot of guilt, considering, the whole incest thing. I'm sure that, he's probably feeling some type of internal thing, or if he's not, then there's some sociopathic stuff going on there. The movie's not interested in it. It's just not interested. It's like, you have to connect the dots as to how this makes sense.
Yeah.
And how, yeah. Oh, sorry, Brandon. Yeah.
No. It's fine. And like the movie, like, I mean, making a movie about Durning would probably be more interesting, because like him like reckoning with like, and him not only not wanting to break the seal of confession, also, but not wanting to reveal like his own sort of guilt about like him like being a hypocritical priest of like, not doing anything about something that he knows is wrong and everything. Like, that would be interesting. Whereas Sutherland is just like, I don't know, the guy's like pretty solid throughout the whole thing, and also he's just like played that one sort of dour note throughout the whole thing. I don't know, it's just like, That's my take, at least. Maybe it wouldn't be a better movie if it was directed by Fred Walton still, but like, not to be so mean about this guy, because I've only seen this one movie, but it's like, it just really was like, this is not a great first impression.
I almost, and even talking about it now, the fact that Belinda Bauer's character like leaves the movie, I almost kind of wish it was like a Listen Up Philip type of thing where you follow Elizabeth Moss for like 30 minutes. It's almost, even that would have been more interesting if you just follow her character doing something else and being like, maybe I should go check on this. Oh, that's fucked up. Oh, well, the movie's over now. Like, I don't know. I'm pulling shit out. It's just so boring. It's just so boring. Anything would have been more interesting if it just took some type of unexpected turn in some way. Because visually, it's flat. The writing is just, by the numbers. It's just...
Yeah, the closest you can get with, like, looking visually interesting is, like, when, like, the movie's, like, really dark, like just really darkly lit with the hallways and everything, but I'm like, I don't even feel like there's really that much interesting stuff with the shadows and everything. I feel like it's just like they turn off the lights. That's really
one of the kill scenes. Kind of looks like you're playing GoldenEye at one point, like
when he kills the sister with the vow of silence, like the bullet, like the barrel, like pops up in the foreground.
Well, and then he like turns around and he's in the faculty level from GoldenEye also. He's coming down from the vents just on top of people in the toilet. Yeah.
No, that would have, what would have been fun is if at one point the killer trapped like Donald Sutherland somewhere and he had to use a laser watch to like just like
that would kick ass.
Get out of like a vent or something.
He's just like karate chopping people in the neck.
Judo chop.
The movie would have been much more interesting if they all were in DK mode and it was one hit kill slappers only mode where the killer just walked up behind nuns and just
the killer is just approaching the nun and just throws his hat at her.
What if there was a Rosary Murders video game that just had you like being like, oh shit, I
press
stole the
X
dolls
to ponder.
character. So like I just shift. It's like the level is like you must read through all these files. Underline this line of the obituary.
Which is a part in GoldenEye. Whenever you start a mission, you're going through the folder and whatnot, and they were just like, no, make that the game. But it's just like, it's like GTA where you can just walk around the church. And it's just like, sit down to ponder about your life, I guess.
I mean, what's the Kumail Nanjiani bit about how like there's like the game Heavy Rain where like a level of that is like just sitting down and trying to talk to your son? Like that's...
I have feelings for you. Yes, no. You click yes, it's like bad priest. Like game over.
Well, no, she gets out of the car and she's like, how do you tell a priest that you care for him? And then it pops to you to hit a prompt. It's just like, tell them about it. Wait 10 seconds. And you just hit wait 10 seconds.
I mean, this would actually really work because there's that game L.A. Noire where every time you ask a bad question, you get sent. It's like, you disappoint me, Cole Phelps. I need a confession. What if you did that in this game where it's like...
Well, it would be like the Walking Dead Telltale game where it's just like you...
Oh, yeah.
It's like barely a game. It's basically just like choose your own adventure type thing. And if you hit a thing, it's just like, so-and-so is disappointed in that answer. Yeah.
In the Rosary Murders game, you're like a new priest, and every time you you say the wrong thing in the booth, like you come out and don't sound so it's like, you disappoint me. I need a confession.
Yeah.
Oh God. This would be like imagine they just like ran the well dry of video game ideas, and they're just like, got it. It's just like, if you're gonna do that for movies we covered, do 976 Evil. That'd kick ass.
Yeah. Or the hidden video game would be tight.
Oh, that would kick ass.
I would love that.
Yeah.
God, when is somebody gonna do that? Okay, wrapping up though. I would say this movie fails because the leading character has like, it says here, and he says in his words that he is like conflicted, but it's like the most baseline conflicted. Like he's not attached to this case or these people or anything like that, or even like if you wanted to go when like he learns about the incestuous relationship, if that makes him think about something that happened to his family or something like that. No. You get nothing. Like,
yeah, there's no personal baggage that he has that's like how it could relate to his own inner demons or some sort.
Yeah.
Nothing. He's just a blank.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Charles Durning, he's got some shit to say. I wish we would be following him, because he'd be like, Even if he was the type to be like, God damn it, can people quit killing nuns? At least that would be like interesting to watch a guy just be like very bereft and just be like, I'm trying to do a service here, and fucking kids are falling asleep and knocking out motherfuckers with a cross.
Yeah, I mean, there's a scene. I mean, we joked in their little group chat about like how like there's a scene where like, you know, even though Journey's character is like a terrible person or anything, there's a scene where it's like all the priests like are like, I guess they just get together and have parties where like they're smoking and drinking and playing cards, and it's like, hey, this seems like this is kind of lively, and then it just cuts to Donald Sutherland like moping on the stairs, and it's just like, fuck, more of this again. Like, it's just,
he's basically Eeyore. He's just fucking Eeyore.
He looks like he's gonna be like, hey, father neighbors, and he's like, yes, Donald Sutherland. He's just like, never mind. He's just like, what do you want me to ask? No, it's all good.
He just kicks a rock and like looks at the ground. Yeah.
It's like the music, the scene set to Avril Lavigne in Bottoms, where she's literally kicking a can down the street.
Pretty much.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Almost Major. Please rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Please follow the pod on Twitter at Almost Major to keep up to date with what movies we will be covering in the future. Myself, I can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at Kev Bonesy. Bryden can be found on Twitter at Bryden Doyle and on Letterboxd at J Doyle. Charlie can be found on Twitter and Letterboxd at CT Nash91. Once again, thank you for listening.